Manu, it's 5 o'clock.
A very refreshing good evening to one and all present here. I'm Manvi Saraswat from Shamlal College Evening from first year. Welcome you all in the 23rd Graduate Scholar Talk series hosted by History Department Sakshar and IQAC Internal Quality Assurance Cell. The talk series is started as an initiative to present your scholarly views on variety of topics. The series is coordinated by Mr. Mudit Bhardwaj, Mr. Saurabh Singh, Mr. Vishesh Kasmi, Mr. Ajay Gupta, and by me. The goddess Saraswati is the authority on academics and the arts. So let's start this session by Saraswati Vandana by Ms. Divya and Mr. Vishesh.
मातृ प्रणाम 1, 2, 3। या कुंदेन्दु तुषार हार धवला या शुभ्र वस्त्रावृता या वीणा वरदंड मंडित करा या श्वेत पद्मासना या ब्रह्माच्युत शंकर प्रभृतिभिर्देवैः सदा वन्दिता सा मां पातु सरस्वती भगवती निशेष जाड्यापहा। मातृ प्रणाम 1, 2, 3। स्वस्थ।
श्लोक अर्थ। जो विद्या की देवी भगवती सरस्वती कुंद के फूल, चंद्रमा, हिमराशि और मोती के हार की तरह धवल वर्ण की है और जो श्वेत वस्त्र धारण करती है, जिनके हाथ में वीणा दंड शोभ्यमान है, जिन्होंने श्वेत कमलों पर आसन ग्रहण किया है तथा ब्रह्मा, विष्णु एवं शंकर आदि देवताओं द्वारा जो सदा पूजित हैं, वही संपूर्ण जड़ता और अज्ञान को दूर कर देने वाली माँ सरस्वती हमारी रक्षा करें।
Thank you, Mr. Divya and Ms. Vishesh. Now, here comes the inaugural of Journal of Continuity and Change, which is a monthly magazine of the History Department of our college, which deals with social, political, and economic issues. To tell you more about the program, now I hand over the program to Ms. Divya. And after that, we will welcome our respected guest of today, Dr. Sudhir Kumar Singh of Dayal Singh College.
Thank you so much, Ms. Manvi. An investment in knowledge pays the best interest. Benjamin Franklin. Good evening, everyone. I am Divya Tyagi, and I thank you all for being here as we launch our college magazine, Journal of Continuity and Change, JCC, by graduates. So first, let me introduce our team of editors. Mr. Anand Joshi, BA Program 4th semester. Ms. Archana Bharti, BA Program 2nd semester. Ms. Divya Tyagi, myself, BA Program 4th semester. Ms. Deepa Tiwari, BA Honours 4th semester, and Mr. Aradhya Tyagi, BA Program 2nd semester, as the PR manager for the magazine. Journal of Continuity and Change, JCC, by graduates is a monthly magazine, an initiative by Sakshar, the Society of History Department of Shamlal College Evening. We will publish our magazine every month with a new theme dealing with the social, political, or economic issue of the particular month. The issue for this month is the population bomb, since July 11 is celebrated as the World Population Day. Our magazine will include the articles, poems, stories, book reviews, etc. of the budding scholars, which will help them shape their creativity and their writing skills and build their confidence, and will provide them with a platform to publish their work. This magazine is an attempt to take the readers on a journey of the past through the present to see the future. JCC will help you have a better perspective of the contemporary issues and will help you find the light amid the darkness. Today, in our inauguration of this magazine, JCC has invited the parents of the editors as the chief guests, as they are the idols and inspiration behind all the hard work. Welcome you all the parents. As I've already mentioned earlier, that this month's theme is the population bomb. Now, Mr. Anand Joshi will give you a better idea of the theme. Mr. Anand Joshi, over to you.
Thank you, Ms. Divya. And now, as it is beautifully said that a life without a goal is a life without a meaning. So to add some meaning to it, we have added a dedicated theme for every month issue in a Journal of Continuity Change magazine that is by graduates. And for this July 2021 issue, which is the first edition of JCC, the theme is the population bomb. Last Sunday on 11th of July, we all observed the World Population Day. Population which we are affecting and the population which is affecting us too. Our goal is to highlight the difficulties created by overpopulation and raise awareness about how overpopulation may harm the ecosystem and the progress of humanity. You will read more about the effects of population explosion on economy, food, health, and society. And now, so over to Ms. Archana, and she will be continuing further. Ms. Archana.
Thank you, Mr. Anand. First of all, I would like to thank everyone for joining us today and would request our viewers to kindly send their feedback on our magazine, which we will incorporate in JCC's message board. Now, starting with the magazine, Journal of Continuity and Change by graduates. We have a message from its editors in the editorial board. After that, we have 4 different articles in the journal by its editors, that is from Mr. Anand, Ms. Divya, Ms. Archana, Ms. Deepa, and an article from our PR manager, Mr. Aradhya. JCC also incorporates articles according to our theme by students of institutions all across the country. In this issue, we have an article from Ms. Samriddhi. The next section that we have is the Graduate Scholars Talk Series section. As you all know, GSTS is a weekly talk show in which our graduate speakers talk about different topics. JCC has submitted a small article of all the previous month's GSTS speakers. In this issue, we have articles of Mr. Ankit, Ms. Sakshi, Ms. Tanya, Ms. Anjumari, and Mr. Mudit. JCC also includes a news corner in which all of Delhi University latest news, views, and announcements can be read. Subsequently, we have also included a bibliography section in which you can find references for every article mentioned above. For the conclusion, JCC contains the theme for our next issue as well as the rules that must be followed by graduates sending their articles. The theme for the second issue of Journal of Continuity and Change is Fear and Courage, Independence Day Special. We hope to receive your articles in the next issue on the email ID jcc.slce@gmail.com. Now, over to you, Ms. Deepa.
Thank you, Ms. Archana. Now, I would like to thank our professors for helping us in the creation of this magazine. I also want to show my appreciation to the editorial team as it would not have without their constant hard work. Our heartfelt gratitude to Saksh and GSTS team us launch our magazine on this platform. Finally, I would like to say that we will keep working hard to make this magazine successful, and as GCC is still growing, are planning to include more innovative ideas in this journal, so you will see our growth every magazine. So please continue on the journey with us. We hope you all will appreciate our efforts. Thank you so much. Now I will invite Mr. Aradhya Tyagi.
थैंक यू मिस दीपा। आज जर्नल ऑफ कंटिन्यूटी एंड चेंज मैगजीन में हमने मैगजीन के एडिटर्स के पेरेंट्स को एज ए चीफ गेस्ट इनवाइट करा है। सो सबसे पहले मैं हमारे एडिटर मिस्टर अनिल शर्मा की मदर मिसेस निर्मला जोशी मैम को इनवाइट करता हूँ, उनसे आग्रह करता हूँ कुछ शब्द कहें।
धन्यवाद। मेरा नाम निर्मला जोशी है। मैं आप लोगों को धन्यवाद करती हूँ कि इस कोरोना काल में और लॉकडाउन में आपने ऐसा मंच बनाया है जिससे बच्चों को क्या मिलता है, प्रोत्साहन मिलता है और हमें गर्व होता है कि गर्व होता है। और मैंने ये मैगजीन देखी है, पढ़ी है। आप लोग भी इसे पढ़ें, समझें और इससे जुड़ें और बच्चों को जिससे प्रोत्साहन मिलेगा। और मैं मनीष सर जी का आभार प्रकट करती हूँ, उन्होंने बच्चों को आगे बढ़ने की बहुत प्रेरणा दी है। मेरी ओर से उनको बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद और नमस्कार।
थैंक यू सो मच मैम। अब मैं हमारी दूसरी एडिटर मिस दिव्या त्यागी के फादर मिस्टर बलराम त्यागी सर को इनवाइट करता हूँ और उनसे आग्रह करता हूँ वो कुछ शब्द कहें।
मैं बलराम त्यागी दिव्या का पापा बोल रहा हूँ। आज जो श्यामलाल कॉलेज के बच्चों ने मिलकर JCC नाम से एक पत्रिका लॉन्च की है, बच्चों की मेहनत के लिए बच्चों को बहुत आशीर्वाद देता हूँ, शुभकामनाएं देता हूँ। आशा है कि यह पत्रिका बच्चों के भविष्य के लिए जरूर लाभान्वित करेगी। धन्यवाद।
थैंक यू सर। अब मैं हमारी अगली एरिया अर्चना भारती मदर मिसेस ममता देवी मैम को बैठ करूँ आग्रह करता हूँ कुछ शब्द कहें।
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, sir. और मैगजीन हम देखे, हमको बहुत अच्छा लगा और बच्चों ने बहुत काफी मेहनत किया है इस पर। और सब बच्चों के साथ मेरा शुभकामनाएं हैं कि इसी तरह मेहनत करें, आगे बढ़े और अपना लक्ष्य को निर्धारित करें।
थैंक यू सो मच मैम। अब मैं हमारी मैगजीन के आखिरी एडिटर मिस दीपा तिवारी के फादर मिस्टर भूपेंद्र शंकर तिवारी सर को इनवाइट करता हूँ आग्रह करता हूँ वो कुछ शब्द कहें।
Good evening, everyone. I am B.S. Tiwari, father of Deepa. Good wishes to all the my lover student and Manish sir, जो कि बड़ी मेहनत करी है सबने इस जेसीसी पत्रिका जो लॉन्च कर रहे हैं। हम आप सभी को तहे दिल से आभार व्यक्त करते हैं और आशा और के साथ पूर्ण विश्वास है कि आप लोग जीवन में आगे बढ़ें और अपना एवरेस्ट की ऊंचाइयों से ऊंचा अपना इस देश के लिए योगदान दें। इसी बात के साथ धन्यवाद।
थैंक यू सो मच सर। अब मैं मैगजीन के पीआर मैनेजर जो कि मैं हूँ आराध्य त्यागी अपने फादर को इनवाइट करता हूँ मिस्टर योगेश त्यागी को इनवाइट करता हूँ उनसे आग्रह करता हूँ वो कुछ शब्द करें।
मैं योगेश त्यागी एडवोकेट सबसे पहले मनीष सर और जैसे टीम को बहुत बहुत शुभकामनाएं देता हूं और उन्हें धन्यवाद देता हूं कि उन्होंने मुझे इनवाइट किया। बेस्ट विशेस टू जेसीसी टीम, ऑल द बेस्ट।
थैंक यू सो मच। नाउ ओवर टू मिस दिव्या।
Thank you so much, Mr. Radhya. Now, I want to thank all of you for joining us today. I hope you all like our magazine and we hope that you will support this magazine and read it. Now, we hope to receive the feedback from all the teachers for our magazine. We also hope to receive the articles and other works from our fellow graduates. You will all find the related information in the magazine itself. Now, you will receive this magazine in the form of a PDF. We will share it in all the groups and you will receive it in the form of a PDF. So thank you all once again so much for joining us today and we hope you support our magazine. Thank you so much. Over to you, Ms. Manvi.
Okay, thank you everyone. Now I welcome our respected guest, Dr. Sudhir Kumar Singh, who is an assistant professor in Dayal Singh College, University of Delhi. Sir has almost 15 years of teaching experience. He has published 4 books and 15 research papers in national and international journals. He has visited many countries to display his intellectual energy. He is a very popular face in news channels debate. He has remarkable understanding on India's relationship with SAARC countries, especially Pakistan and Afghanistan. Sir, I request you to please share your valuable words with us.
Thank you very much for your kind invitation. This magazine itself vindicates the amount of hard work you people have assembled and produced this particular issue, and also it is a sustainable process, so you are doing hard work, and this hard work from the student side reminds me that at the earliest stage of your academic career you are going to do the work which is supposed to do by even once you are completing your academic degree and then coming into the teaching job. But you have started from right now. It is a very good one, and I must say that you people have inspired many colleges, because many colleges, as I understand, their students are not doing this job which you have done. So first of all, I congratulate all the students who are involved during the process. Coming out with these magazines is not an easy cakewalk. It is a very tough one. It requires a huge amount of energy, dedication, and persuasion. And it is I mean, you have a very fortunate teachers, particularly Dr. Manish and other faculties who have supervised you during the whole process and gave you adequate directives to fulfill this particular one. So I wish you all the best in your academic career. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Now let's start the main part of the program, the talk of the session. So I call Mr. Sanskar to present his opinions on the topic India's foreign policies.
Thank you so much, Manvi. The foreign policies is not about changing mindsets, but about finding common meeting points. With that, a very good evening, everyone. I, Sanskar Sihoriya, studying Political Science Honours, first year, Singh College. And today, I would like to talk on India's foreign policy. Before going further, I would like to thank Shamlal College Evening and GSTS team for giving this immense opportunity to present my views on such an important topic. India's foreign policy is not a new term, or it's not just a term of contemporary India. If you see, the traces of foreign policies can be found in the epics as well, like Ramayana and Mahabharata. If you were to believe the epics, then you could see how Lord Hanuman is considered as one of the first diplomats of India and how he went to Lanka to negotiate with Ravan. Not only this, if you go through the history books, you could easily find how earlier rulers used to send their messengers or say diplomats to other states for forming treaties, negotiations, and spreading their messages. The primary example of this are Ashoka's messengers, who roamed through the subcontinental region and the foreign world to spread the message of their dharma. At the stroke of midnight hour, when the world sleeps, India will awake to life and freedom. Indeed, India awoke to life and freedom. But with this new life, we had many new challenges. In the bipolar world, we had many obstacles before us. And India, coming out of colonial rule, has its objectives very clear. It wanted to resist the dilution of its sovereignty and building its economy with energetic diplomacy. The two power blocs, USA and the Soviet Union, wanted to impose their supremacy over the globe. And India had an option. They had an option to choose one of them. But for a newly born democracy, it was very much important to maintain its stability and sovereignty. India never wanted to be a part of USA because of capitalism, and Soviet Union never formally invited it. So it was all up to India whom to favor. Jawaharlal Nehru and the newly formed Congress government had a huge task before them. And then Nehru became the founding father of an era of optimistic non-alignment. Non-alignment was about engaging with all and having ideologically neutrality to maintain strategical autonomy. During the turbulent Cold War period, India gave a message. India gave a strong message that stability can be achieved by moral idealism, not military aggression, and proclaimed that war is a highly overrated tool of a foreign policy. Talking about India's neighborhood, India also tried to maintain the good relations with the neighbors as well, particularly talking about China. India signed the Panchshil Agreement in 1954, and that Panchshil Agreement was eventually based on 5 principles of peaceful coexistence. And interestingly, those 5 principles also include respect for territorial sovereignty of a country, though China never did it and not doing it. After Nehru, the other PMs also more or less tried to take forward that legacy and work on the similar lines. But during the reign of Indira Gandhi in 1971, the Indo-Pak War started. And the main thing to note on this was the US action. US openly supported Pakistan. Do you know why? Because US had a vision. They had a vision that Pakistan might provide them the access to Asia. Pakistan might help them in setting up military base camps. And also another reason was that USA never wanted the non-alignment movement. It was completely against it. So it was the time when USA was completely hostile to India, and their then President Richard Nixon and his NSA, National Security Advisor, Henry Kissinger, gave many retrograde remarks against India, Indira Gandhi, and Indian women as well. But at that time, Russia helped India. Russia was the main power to help India in 1971 war. And then they signed the Treaty of Peace, Friendship, and Cooperation. And it was all Russia's power play which actually helped India and pretended the Indian territory to be occupied by the Pakistan through joint American-Pakistani attack. Later on, good defense ties as well as good relation ties were established between India and Russia. In the times of P.V. Narasimha Rao, then Finance Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh changed the whole world scenario with the introduction of economic liberalization in 1991 and also breakdown of Soviet Union. The Western world tried to engage more with India on the economic front, and India also started looking towards the West for its trade. and India was more focused towards the West for imports and defense essentials, for whom we were more reliable on Russia before that. Another effect of this particular economic liberalization was the Look East policy in 1992. This particular Look East policy was actually about enhancing cooperations, especially economic cooperations with Southeast Asian countries. Post-economic reforms, then this particular policy was actually a reaction to the changing scenarios of India's foreign policy, which was more focused on forging close ties on economic and commercial affairs. Then another major milestone in the foreign policies taken by I.K. Gujral was the Gujarat Doctrine. He propounded the Gujarat Doctrine when he was the Union Minister of External Affairs in H.D. Dev Gowda government. This particular doctrine of Gujarat Doctrine was eventually based on India's approach of Big Brother in South Asia. India, considered to be a dominant power in South Asia, decided that it should help diplomatically the smaller neighbors like Bangladesh, Nepal, Bhutan, etc. And it was decided that India must engage with them on the principle of non-reciprocity. The government given any reason for this particular doctrine, but it was actually to contain two hostile neighbors on the western and the eastern frontier, that is Pakistan and China. Then another prime minister took lead, and it was Atal Bihari Vajpayee. Vajpayee was someone who knew the game of balances, and he was very passionate. He took forward the Indian status in the neighborhood and in the world as well, which could be seen by two important events that occurred during his phase. That are, first one is the nuclear weapon state in 1998 and also the Kargil War in 1999. And these two particular events gave India its identity on the globe, and everyone started looking towards India as a major power of the future. When the change of power occurred in the nation, Manmohan Singh took command, and Manmohan Singh's initial attention was towards neighborhood and confidence building measures. He had his intentions very clear. He wants to build the confidence of the neighbors as well as the relations of the world. Manmohan Singh, to start with Pakistan, he started a bus service from Srinagar to Muzaffarabad, which was actually about people-to-people interaction. And he had an aim that this people-to-people interaction would eventually lead to government-to-government interaction. And talking about Chinese aspect, India started looking towards China for military cooperations and also on the special ties on the economic front. Talking particularly about economic front, that trade was something that was turning out to be a boon for Indo-China relationship. India-US relationship were also started mending during that phase, and especially after the civil nuclear deal in 2005. And this particular civil nuclear deal was actually opened a new chapter in the bilateral relationship of India and USA. And USA started looking towards India as a major power of the future. Then with the downfall of Congress in 2014, BJP emerges. And then Narendra Damodar Das Modi announced his arrival on the biggest stage and took lead of the biggest democracy of the world. Narendra Modi, since his reign, made his intentions very clear on the foreign policy group, which could be understood by his invitation given to SARS group leaders on his oath ceremony. Narendra Modi's style of personal diplomacy has actually given India its really good platform on the world stage. His interactions with the leaders personally and his visits to the foreign nations is actually one of the main principles of his foreign policy. Narendra Modi's style of retail diplomacy is also something very important. Retail diplomacy is about leader-to-people interaction, which is actually that Narendra Modi does not even limit himself to the leader of that particular foreign state. He actually interacts with the private firms of that particular state. He also interacts with the CEOs of those big companies, and he also interacts with the mega celebrities of foreign states. These two particular elements of retail diplomacy and personal diplomacy are not a surprise. If you look at the RSS background of Prime Minister Modi, then it could be easily find out that these are actually impressed and inspired by RSS pillar, that is Samvad. Discussing more about Narendra Modi's foreign policy, then we start with the neighborhood first. Particularly, Indo-China relationship is something that is not at all considered to be of prime importance since the dawn of Indian democracy. As our former Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee once said, "आप दोस्त को बदल सकते हैं, परंतु पड़ोसी को नहीं." This is the case with China. But in recent years, and to be precise, I think after the start of second term of Prime Minister Modi's government, the relationship with China are not at all at the very best level. There are various incidences and reasons for these particular tensions. First of all, is the frequent clashes between Indian Army and the Chinese one, and those frequent clashes had actually led to frequent aggressive dialogues. Indian government, in the name of national security, has banned many Chinese apps, which has actually attracted a lot of criticism from the Chinese counterparts. Also, recently we saw how after abrogation of Article 370, China showed a favor towards Pakistan, which has actually further distanced these two neighbors. Not to forget the BRI initiative of China, that is Belt and Road Initiative of China, which has created a lot of tensions between India and Chinese relationship. Especially the corridor through POK is central to those tensions in this particular BRI initiative. And this particular corridor through POK is not at all endorsed by the Indian government. And at last is the rising aggression of China in Indo-Pacific region, which is actually hurting India's interest. Indo-Pacific holds a great strategic importance for India. India, as a major South Asian naval power and aspiring to be a superpower, needs to counter China in this particular region. Earlier, China used to possess only territorial threats, but now as the world is changing, plots are changing, so it is important to put our eyes in the ocean waters as well. And I think India is finding answers to all these questions. And the particular answer to all these questions is Quad. Quad is quadrilateral security dialogue of 4 countries, that is USA, India, Japan, and Australia. Quad was initially put forward by Shinzo Abe, then Japanese Prime Minister, in 2007. And recently we saw how formally the 4 countries' leaders had a meeting and circulate a joint statement. The main objective of this particular dialogue is to develop a mechanism in strategic intelligence and military exercises. Also, one major aim of Quad is to counter China and to counter the hegemony of China in Indo-Pacific region. So this particular Indo-Pacific region is unquestionably the arena for the contemporary version of the Great Games, where multiple players with diverse ambitions comes here and show their strategic skills. But it's very important to analyze this particular Quad from other countries' perspective as well. And particularly, this Quad is actually affecting India and Russian relationship. Russia, which was considered to be India's all-weather friend, has actually criticized this particular dialogue and referred it as Asian NATO. Russia, after leaving G8, has actually isolated itself from the West, and Russia-US relationship are not considered to be those great that it used to be. Russia, having good relationship with China, has shown interest in mending India-China relationship through RIC summit, that is Russia-India-China summit. These efforts of Russia did not give a result, and all go in a vain. Also, China has criticized quadrilateral security dialogue with an all-out effort and termed this alliance as anti-China. Not to forget, the Chinese government mouthpiece, that is Global Times, has actually criticized this dialogue and indirectly messaged India that this particular dialogue is contradictory to BRICS and SCO summit. As we all know that India having good relationship with Russia, so it would be interesting to see how America reacts to India's delivery of S-400 system from Russia, whether it will attract CAATSA, that is countering America's adversaries through Sanction Act or not, or whether India will leave S-400 or not. So the scenarios are going to be really interesting, and it will actually display India's clear picture of India's stance on the world dynamics. You see, this has been a drawback with India-US relationship, and it actually affects our autonomy and affects our ties with other countries. Earlier also we have seen that how our supply of oil were affected due to sanctions imposed by USA on Iran. So there's a need of balancing act to accommodate both the interests of India, that is Russia and USA. As I mentioned about Iran, so let's shift our focus toward Middle East countries. Relationship with Middle East and particularly West Asia started growing with the end of with the breakdown of Soviet Union and the end of Cold War. And also one more reason is that the economic liberalization policy. Due to accelerated economy, the demand for oil and gas boosted. And there was a time where during Manmohan Singh reign when the Look West policy was put forward in 2005 with a special focus to boost cooperations with Gulf countries. There are significant numbers of reasons for India and Gulf relations, so let's discuss them one by one. And we should discuss that why India should have a relationship with West Asia. First of all is the oil dependence. We all know how highly India is dependent on Gulf countries for oil and gas import, and it is an important pillar of our relations with Gulf countries. Another reason is the Indian diaspora. Since significant numbers of workers working there are Indians and contributing well towards the economy, so it's in our direct interest to deal with them diplomatically. And we all know that how Indian diaspora is actually oxygen to Narendra Modi's foreign policies, and hence it's important to engage with them more diplomatically. Another reason is related to Pakistani angle and the Muslim population. We all know after abrogation of Article 370 and especially CAA, how Pakistan taking advantage of it and always try to defame India on the international level and try to present it as a Muslim-hating country. Especially after abrogation of Article 370, how Pakistan tried to take support of the OIC, that is Organization of Islamic Cooperation, in its favor. And if you all remember how Turkey criticized India for its move. So it's important to neglect this Pakistani effect on Gulf countries. India must engage with them diplomatically and send a message to the world that India is not at all a Muslim-hating country and not only secular on constitution, but also in practicality as well. But dealing with Middle East has its own problems, and there are a lot of problems which can become a barrier while the relationship. The two main important events is the political instability and the regional rivalry. Middle East has a history of civil wars. Recently only we saw about the Israel-Palestinian conflict. And on this thing we saw that how this conflict, we have seen how safe India played as Rahul Dravid used to. Though India recognized Israel since its formation back only, but it has always put its weight on Palestine and supported for the two-state solution. But this time, this balancing nature of India does not go well with Israel. As we all remember how then Israeli PM Netanyahu in his Thanksgiving tweet does not even mention India. So India needs to act dynamically to the changing situation in the Middle East. Talking about the future terms, I think India needs to go beyond oil and gas supply. India should promote tourism there, as you all know that how West Asia is considered as a hub of Muslim pilgrimage, so it must promote tourism there. And India, having second largest Muslim population in the world, must have its interest in it. Not only tourism, I think agriculture is also something which can be really effective diplomatic tool looking at India and West Asia relationship. India can really have its West Asian counterparts in developing good agriculture ties. Another major policy decision of Narendra Modi's government is the Act East policy. Taking forward that particular Look East policy of PV Narasimha Rao, Act East policy actually an upgraded version of it. Moving ahead from earlier objective of economic integration with Southeast Asian region and ASEAN, this particular Act East policy is actually underlines economic as well as security cooperations and integration not only with ASEAN nations but also with the East Asian countries, that is Japan, South Korea, and etc. This particular Act East policy highlighted 4 Cs, and those 4 Cs were mentioned by our Prime Minister as well. That is culture, commerce, connectivity, and capacity building. Culture also plays a very important role during India and ASEAN relationship because of Buddhism. India's focus on strengthened and multifaceted relations with ASEAN is the outcome of the significant changes in the world scenario and the economic scenario. RPM talked about the mutual coordination between India's vision of the Indo-Pacific region and ASEAN outlook for maintaining strategic balance in the region. But talking about the future terms, then as you all know that presently trade is the important aspect between India and ASEAN relationship, then trade will be the important aspect in future as well. In ASEAN India Plan of Action, that is POA 2021-25, actually recommended an economic corridor through Myanmar to connect India and ASEAN. And that economic corridor can actually be really effective looking at the economics of India and ASEAN bloc. That can actually attract lot of investment. And also certain experts have claimed that automobile and pharmaceutical sector is something which can be really good looking forward in the present COVID world scenario. Not to forget the Vietnam role. India must engage with Vietnam more diplomatically because Vietnam is a hub in ASEAN. So India must have its interest in particularly Vietnam. Let's come back to our neighborhood. Then I think everything is not at all good in this aspect. Growing Chinese influence in our neighborhoods is harming the interest of our country. The small neighbor Nepal, which used to be India's high obligation, was showing eyes to India. KP Oli, the person who can't even save his government properly, was claiming the parts of Indian territory to be Nepali one. Not just Nepal, Bangladesh relations are also not that good as it used to be, though they are still good, but not that good. Especially after CAA. Again, our PM tried his personal diplomacy trick and visited the nation, but that won't be enough. Because China trying its very best to take Bangladesh under its shed by using her debt trap policy. Similarly, China tried and is trying her debt trap policy with Sri Lanka. And recently we saw the example how Hambantota port was given to Chinese firm on the leash of 99 years. Not only just Hambantota port, then I think recently we saw that how Sri Lankan parliament passed the port city bill for Colombo port, which actually has a huge stake of Chinese firm. Then I think not just this, because China is using her sting of pearls also to counter India in this particular subcontinent region. For better understanding of sting of pearls, then I think I should show you certain slides that will actually give you a better picture of what is sting and pearls is. I'm considering that it's visible to you all. Now, if you see that this particular map, then this is about Chinese sting of pearls. Sting of pearls, that is Motiyon ki Mala, is actually about Chinese investment to develop maritime base camps on strategic locations. If you talk about this, then this is Chittagong port in Bangladesh, Coco Island, Hambantota port, as I mentioned about, Maldives investment, and this recently Gwadar port in Pakistan, and also Djibouti. So these particular points are on a very strategic locations. For example, if you talk about this Gwadar port, then it is actually located here. And here we have a Gulf of Hambas, if you all know. And from here only our supply from Iran comes to India. So this Gulf of Hambas can be really effective looking at the India's trade aspect. And this particular Gwadar port actually has a military access to China. And China, if some situation arises in future, can use this particular Gulf of Hambas to block it and make it a choke point, which can actually directly affect the India's energy security. Also, Djibouti port, they have a really good military aspect here, and here we have a Gulf of Aden that is also have a great strategic importance. This is our particular answer to string of pearls, and this is necklace of diamonds. Talking about the 5 special positions on this particular necklace of diamond, then this is Changi Naval Port, Singapore, Sabang Port, Indonesia, Assumption Island, Duqm Port, Oman, and recently built Chabahar Port in Iran. Chabahar Port can be seen as an answer to Gwadar Port of China, because Chabahar is having a really good strategic location, as I talked about the Gulf of Hambas here, and Duqm Port is actually also have a great strategic importance because it has both military and naval assets of India. So it can be used as a really good check post for India. Not to forget, the main important thing is the Changi Naval Port in Singapore. This port is located near Gulf of Malacca, and Gulf of Malacca, if you all know, it's considered as one of the busiest routes if we talk about the trading aspect. Or most of our supplies comes from the eastern countries, comes through Gulf of Malacca. So if some situation arises in future, then we have our capacity to block and make them a choke points as well, not only just China. So it was all about the string of pearls and the diamond of necklace. Now let's move forward. Particularly talking, as we have discussed about the major policy decisions of Narendra Modi's government, few questions arises. What are they? What can be done further? What are the future plans? And what can be the shape of Indian foreign policy in future? See, in the Indian subcontinent, India's foreign policy need a serious look. धुआं जो कुछ घरों से उठ रहा है, पूरे शहर पर ना छाया तो कहना. This is the condition in our subcontinent. Rebellious attitude of one neighbor might also affect the rebellious attitude of another. India needs to go back to Gujarat Doctrine, needs to go back to neighborhood first policy, and must maintain the confidence of our neighbors. Recently, we saw how Vaccine Maitri kind of initiatives were put forward, which is really effective diplomatic tool looking at the present COVID world. Many experts termed 21st century as the Asian 10th century, and India has termed that power, which can be really, which can actually act as a good driver of this century. But for that, we need to establish our authority in our Indian subcontinent first of all, and for that, we need to overcome Chinese aggression, its diplomatic strategies, but also understanding great theme of China, that is grand deception on one hand and talking about mutual trust on another. But I can conclude that Chinese national power or comprehensive power is substantially greater than ours. So it is always going to be a challenge for India to deal with China diplomatically. Talking about the world order, then taking a look at the present scenario, India is engaging good with USA and has cordial relations with Russia as well. And if India engages with both of them, then it can really affect the relationship of both USA and Russia. And if India joins NATO, then that won't be a good thing, because joining NATO does not seem to be a greater idea. India is that engine which can lead the world to a stable and peaceful globe. Russia always saw India as a balancer. So there is a need that while developing closer ties with USA, one must not forget one of the oldest friends, that is Russia, which can be really effective tactic to counter the strategic partnership between Russia and China as well. India today is in a unique position where it can make good relationship with all the great powers and can leverage this position to help in building a peaceful world order. I would like to end with a quote by Swami Vivekananda, that is, the world is that great gymnasium where we come to make ourselves stronger, stronger, and stronger. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Sanskar. Surely that was such a magnificent display of words on such a extensive topic. You have comprehended each and everything with subtle findings in just 25 minutes. That's unequivocally commendable. So we have got certain questions from our listeners. First question is from Mr. Saurabh Singh. He's asking, Sanskar, do you agree that we are suffering from middle power syndrome, engaging mainly with big powers? If so, what steps can India take to get the best out of these middle powers? Sanskar.
Actually, can you please repeat the question? I did not hear it properly.
Mr. Saurabh is asking, do you agree that we are suffering from middle power syndrome, engaging mainly with big powers? If so, what steps can India take to get the best out of these middle powers?
I think it's not the same scenario that we are just engaging with the big powers. If you talk about the France relationship also, they are also going on with a good pace. So, and if you're talking about what can India do best to take out of these middle powers, recently we saw the Rafale deal. I mean, it's a good deal with France, but there are a lot of controversies about the Rafale deal. Let's not discuss about them. But talking about the best out of them, then we are still engaging with France. For example, we are still engaging with France, and not to forget, engaging with Vietnam for the trade relations and especially the ASEAN contact. So it's not that just we are just engaging with the big powers. We are also engaging with middle powers as well. But yes, we needs to counter all the arguments. While looking at the one particular main power, we should not forget the other one, and that was the meaning of the non-alignment movement also. So we must not forget that particular aspect of non-alignment movement.
Well, next question is by Mr. Ankit. He's asking, do you think does culture constitutes a more prominent element in India's foreign policy in the 21st century?
Well, culture can be a really good, but present scenario, I don't think that culture is doing such a great role in India's foreign policy. Earlier, it used to play a great role in India's foreign policy. Like if we talk about the Chinese aspect, then that Tibetan culture about the Dalai Lama one, we had a really good relations with this also. But at present, I think culture is not playing that prominent role in this particular India's foreign policy. It is playing in ASEAN context, for example, talking about the Buddhism part, but with the major powers, I think with USA, I don't think that culture is playing. Indian diaspora is playing some certain role. I think where India have a really good amount of diaspora, their countries are also interacting with India more because it actually affects them with their always vote bank politics kind of things. But Indian diaspora is, I think, something which is really playing a big role because, as I mentioned, that Indian diaspora is something which is considered to be an oxygen to Prime Minister Modi's foreign policy. So this is all I want to say.
Okay, fine. Next question is by Mr. Ajay. He's asking, do you think China's expansionist policy is more practical in international arena, seeking the limited resources available to us?
Where is the question, please?
Okay. Ajay is asking that, do you think China's expansionist policy, it is more practical one in international arena, seeking the limited resources available to us?
Chinese expansionist policy is all about debt trap, sir. I mean, practical or not, but it will harm us. Certainly, it will harm us, no doubt, because Chinese expansionist policy, imperialism policy in subcontinent is going to harm us, and we are seeing the result of it. Like as I mentioned about Nepal, it is showing results to us, and it will be showing result in Sri Lanka as well, because we know that Rajapaksa brothers have a really good soft heart for China, and which could be seen by his two policy decisions recently. But in practicality, his policy, yes, it is certainly going to harm us, and it is harming us as well. But it can be countered. Like it can be countered because not by us individually, we cannot counter China. This is a fact. We don't have that national power, comprehensive power to counter China. If we talk about the Belt and Road Initiative of China, it has lot of investment by the different countries. So we cannot counter China's Belt and Road Initiative, which are just with our Quad Initiative or Necklace of Diamond Initiative. It has a lot of investment, and India does not have that economic power to counter it. But as we talked about that, how it can be countered, then India can take help of the big powers like Russia have a good relation with China and India as well. So India cannot take it lightly that while forging close ties with USA should forget Russia, because Russia is considered to be India's all-weather friend. Then Russia's interests are really important here, because if we take help of Russia, then China can be countered. But individually, India does not have that comprehensive power or national power to counter China. Not only on the basis of not only on individual grounds, but also India needs to counter this on the economic grounds. I think banning apps does not seem to be a greater idea, because China has a lot of investment in the world. If one country is banning Chinese apps, it does not actually bother them at all. But now, expansionist policy, as you are talking about, one more thing I want to mention about is that if you all remember about the palm and the four-finger policy of expansionist policy of China, that was put forward by the Mao Zedong, if I'm not wrong. That policy was about that the palm is the Tibet and the right 5 fingers is the Ladakh, your Nepal, Bhutan, Sikkim, and Arunachal Pradesh. Last year also we saw about the Doklam that conflict. So China is trying its very best to take this 5 finger and the right arm policy very seriously. This is the policy of Communist Party only. So India needs to counter this Chinese aspect in the subcontinent first of all. Then we should go on the world scenario. But individually it won't be possible. We need to take. We need a lot of interest in our favor, especially from the big powers.
Okay, thank you, Sanskar.
Mudit, only one last question by Raj. Combine your question and Raj question, and that's over.
Okay. Last question. I'm having a doubt that should India be back to its non-alignment policy, or be it more open on in its approach in today's world, considering the perplexities India is facing, especially on matters of crude oil, arms and ammunition procurement, issue of trade routes. And Raj is asking that do you think non-alignment movement also had a realist aspect?
Sir, talking about present scenario, I don't think that Modi government has that great favor for non-alignment movement. I mean, last two conferences, the Prime Minister Modi did not even attend those conferences, non-alignment. So I don't think that Modi government has that soft heart for non-alignment. But non-alignment is certainly something that should be considered. I think taking a look at the present scenario, it is not a bipolar world, but it is a multipolar world. So we just don't need an interest of one country. We need interest of many countries. So so it should be dealt diplomatically, I think. But Narendra Modi's government does not seem to have that greater soft corner for non-alignment movement. But it is certainly a good point. Looking at the present world scenario, non-alignment should be considered, because if you see that talking about the not only just China aspect, talking about this subcontinent aspect, I mean Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Nepal, that were used to be India's obligations first of all, but now they are also shifting towards China more. So for that aspect also, we need non-alignment. I mean, we cannot just go to USA that please come and support us. I mean, we need Russia as well, we need UK as well. So non-alignment certainly a good option, I think.
Thank you very much, Sanskar. We hope that all the listeners have got their answers. And due to time limit, we couldn't take other questions. Over to you, Manvi.
Okay. Now I would like to call Ms. Shivani Sharma from Gargi College, who is the speaker for next week, to give a brief about her topic.
Greetings, everyone. I guess I'm audible.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, sir. Greetings, everyone. Myself, Shivani Sharma. I'm a student of BSc Physical Science at Gargi College, University of Delhi. Firstly, I want to thank the teacher and the whole team of GSTS for giving me this opportunity, and I would give my best thank you. My topic for the talk on upcoming weekend, that is on 25th of July, is medieval alchemy. Regarding the same, I wish to attract your attention toward the topic by sharing some facts and my objective for the talk. Alchemy is a multifaceted subject. It is an early form of chemical technology exploring the nature of substances. It is also a philosophy of the cosmos and of mankind's place in the scheme of things. My talk on July 25 will explicitly revolve around the alchemy in the Middle Ages. My objective for the talk are same as the ones of the topic itself. That is, first, knowledge of the subject, as alchemy corresponds to knowledge of cosmos. Second, learning about the skills used by alchemists, as alchemy corresponds to mastering the skills of practicing medicines for humanity. And the attitude towards the subject, as alchemy corresponds to eagerness to discover the medium of eternal youth and health. Alchemy, like any other knowledge-making system, was torn between text and experiments. That is, between loyalty to tradition and alcoholism and then to return to basic observations. With this, I also want to add and quote by an ancient alchemist named Paracelsus that alchemy is the art that separates what is useful from what is not by transforming it into ultimate matter and essence. So alchemy is a very interesting and fun concept, and it absolutely gives birth to a lot of curiosity and a lot of questions. So please stay tuned and join us on the weekend, dated July 25 at 5 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shivani. Now I would request our respected guest to please give his final remarks about the talk.
Thank you very much. I wish that all of our students have enjoyed Sanskar lecture on India's foreign policy. At BA level, control over all contours of foreign policy is not a easy thing. It is a big thing. And I'm satisfied that he has already traverses all important sectors of India's foreign policy. I also congratulate Dr. Manish and his student colleagues for organizing a presentation on India's foreign policy. Simply, history people are avoiding the debates on India's foreign policy, but history has huge connectivity with foreign policy, because India's foreign policy has some basic determinants, and that has not changed even today. Like kind of persuasion for third world countries, and persuasion of the philosophical notion of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. You know, if this notion will be really adopted by all important countries, then globe will be very peaceful place. You know, every year important countries are spending around $2 trillion on military expenditure, and only 25% of that amount could be providing very good health care and education to the infants who are unable to attend classes due to lack of adequate infrastructure in those countries, particularly in Africa. Dr. Manish is an expert of Africa. He knows the kind of prevailing anarchy in Africa, where people are living like a very pathetic state of life, you know. And India has sustainably contributed a lot for the people of Africa without going into any output from that particular investment. India has done well in Africa. Foreign policy is a continuity, and continuity needs change, and those changes are not shaped by you only. Those changes are shaped by the incidents which are occurring, and that is not under control of any particular country. Take the example of Corona. The outburst of Corona has altered all parameters of foreign policy, and you have to cope up with the challenges which has come out from that. So that is extremely critical for the countries. You know, America is a very powerful country, but America lost 5 lakh people, and counting goes on. Russia, which is a very small country in terms of population, only 13 crore, it has also lost almost 1 lakh people, and Delhi toll is 700 people. So, Brazil and all others, roughly, world has lost more than 4 million people. You know, after Spanish flu 1918, just in the midst of World War I, it is one of the biggest global pandemic. And the debate is on who has invented. Even American great doctor Michael Fauci has already stated that, Anthony Fauci has already stated that it has been invented from Chinese. The debates are on, but the thing is that you have to respond. Within this pandemic, China has intruded into our territory in Ladakh region. Why they did so, you know? And things have changed. During Cold War period, America and India were strange allies. A great American author called Daniel Cooks wrote a book, India and America, Great Democracies but Strange Allies. But today, in 2000, around when Bill Clinton, Deputy Foreign Minister, and Talbot wrote a classic book, India and America, The Engaged Allies. So how strange allies have been transformed into engaged allies. It speaks itself that foreign policy is not being driven under certain political considerations. Foreign policy is being driven merely on the basis of national interest. And national interest keeps changing. Before Cold War, India's national interest was different. Today, India's national interest is different. Economic policy, economic power also speaks a lot. Because when Narasimha Rao decided in 1991 to adopt LPG process, liberalization, privatization, globalization, India had only $3 billion in their foreign reserves. Today, India has $600 billion in its foreign reserve. and fifth country globally to have that particular huge amount. After China, Japan, Switzerland, and Russia. And just you imagine that whole economy of Pakistan is $296 billion only, annual economy. And we have $600 billion under our reserve. So 2 years of Pakistan national GDP is India's reserve. Such a comfortable position. You know, but when Narasimha Rao adopted LPG process, people have criticized it a lot. There is a group of economists, so-called economists, who alleged that he has sold out the country. But today, after 30 years of that particular experiment, we have a very comfortable situation. And without economic power, you cannot think for the strategic power, for the military power. Long back, Kautilya wrote in his Arthashastra that a king must strengthen their kosa. Kosa means treasury. Once your kosa is powerful, then you will have a good military. You can carry out welfare measures to your people. So money is important in foreign policy, and countries' stature decline and increase due to their economic prosperities. You know, in 1960s, India was, begging for PL 480 wheat. Today, India, at that point of time, India had 70 crore population. Today, India is, hosting 130 crore population, feeding them properly, and contributing tons and crore tons of grains to Africa and many other areas, which is, confronting with the food problem. So that depends. So it has changed India's status. India has joined Quad. Quad is not even a new concept, but it was invented by former Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe in 2007. But Quad has gained its momentum in the backdrop of the corona crisis, because Chinese maneuvers in Ladakh has vindicated the kind of assertiveness of Chinese, which is totally unacceptable in the norms of the international law. So America, Japan, Australia, and India are the members of the Quad. It is an arc of democracies. And that arc of democracies is fighting for a kind of respect for the international law in Indo-Pacific region, which is larger region of Asia, Africa, and parts of America also, Europe also, very huge region. Long back, Lord Curzon mentioned in 1900, when he was a member of parliament in Britain before becoming Governor General here, that India could be the pivot of the expansion of the British Empire. The Indo-Pacific is a new revisit of that particular philosophical strategic notion propounded by Lord Curzon. Lord Curzon, however, had been cited due to bad reasons. You students of history knows it very well. Today, we have multiple challenges. India has adopted activist policy. India has already launched many things, but Indian foreign policy has become proactive under Prime Minister Modi. Prime Minister Modi has shown the kind of dynamicism which was totally absent in India's foreign policy. We had reactive foreign policy. Prime Minister Modi has adopted proactive foreign policy. India has guts today to tell China that you are wrong. Earlier, India was not doing so. We take the case of South China Sea, take the case of East China Sea, take the case of any other issues. Even in Corona, when Australia loudly stated that China is the inventor of Corona and it is an artificial invention, India also supported that it must be investigated in WHO Executive Council meeting. So today, India's foreign policy has multiple challenges. My dear, foreign policy is a broader policy. It includes your domestic politics, it includes your economic policy, and it includes your cultural policy also. And finally, foreign policy is only and only driven by national interest. And national interest also keeps changing. You know, because friends and foes keeps changing in the realm of foreign policy. Right from the Kautilyan Arthashastra till Kenneth Walls write up and Samuel P. Huntington write up, you will find that foes and friends are changing. India and America were foes almost during Cold War. Today they are best friends. People said that when Trump is there, that relationship is very good. Biden will come and relation will be hostile. Today Biden and Modi has a same level of bilateral relationship when what India was availing during Trump time, because it is American national interest to engage India, and it is India's national interest to engage America, because their common enemy is China, and that is a settled issue. So in both in Washington and New Delhi, India-China foreign policy has become a politically consensual policy. Russia has also importance. India keeps engaging Russia because Russia is an old friend. But we should not forget that Russia has lost its economic appeal. It is not an economic power. It is a military hardware power, and somehow geostrategically possessing huge territory in Asia, Eurasia masses, land masses, so it is important. But India keeps engaging Russia as well. So foreign policy today have many challenges, and one of the challenges is the diversity of the foreign policy, because world is still dominated by single power, America. India says that no, China says that we will dominate, I will dominate Asia. India says no, Asia should be multipolar, world should also be multipolar, world should be based on international laws, and international laws must be respected by all relevant parties, and that is ultimate demand of India. So in Asia, India-America interest is converging. Therefore, our relationship is deepening. Economic relationship is also important. When Narasimha Rao was the Prime Minister, India had only 30 billion export-import total trade. Today, India has almost 1 trillion total trade. So 30 billion and 1 trillion, almost 33 times in 30 years, India's trade has gone up. We should not refrain from globalization challenges. India has huge younger population. We have huge production machinery. You have huge population to be a very good consumer. So that is our asset. That is not our liability. The better we use this, world will come to us, and future is ours. The foreign policy only requires to be proactive and reaping the benefit within the prevailing situation. And I believe that Prime Minister Modi government is doing it in a very meticulous way. I must tell you, a very meticulous way, because world is transforming today, and there may be a power shift after Corona, because as after Suez incident in 1956, the transition of power had taken place. That may take place fully or partially, but will take place. And India has already shown the globe that it may take place, but India is ready to adhere with the responsibility, with the duty of the globe. And United Nations reform is also one of the agenda of India, and that is also very good, very much required, because world has changed. The situation of just after World War II and the situation exists today is a different one. So again, thank you very much to all for giving me an opportunity to interact with the youngest mind of the globe. You youngest people are the real custodian of India, and I believe that under your able leadership and dynamic hard work, we will achieve our goal. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. They were very informative words. Now, I would like to call Ms. Divya for vote of thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Manvi. Good evening, everyone. I am Divya Tyagi, a proud member of Saksha, the History Society of Shamlal College Evening. And it's my privilege to have been asked to propose a vote of thanks today in the 23rd session of GSTS. I, on behalf of the whole Saksha and the GSTS team, extend a hearty vote of thanks to everyone present here. As you all know, the Department of History is under the convenership of Dr. D.N. Singh and under the guidance of Dr. Manish Karamba sir, Dr. Pramod Kumar sir, Dr. Seema Meena ma'am, and Mr. Ajay Kumar sir. In 2016-17, Saksha was first formed, and the current office bearers are Mr. Ankit as President, Ms. Mandira Paul as Vice President, Mr. Shubham Tiwari as Secretary, Ms. Preeti Rai as Joint Secretary, and Ms. Chandni Sikarwar as Treasurer. Saksha has organized quizzes, debates, lecture series, seminars, career counseling, and educational trips. Sakshi also organized the OBE seminar and Graduate Scholar Talk Series, GSTS. Now, I wish to express my gratitude to our guest, Dr. Sudhir sir, for his kind and encouraging and informative words and for giving us his precious time. Thank you so much, sir. Now, I would like to express my thanks to Dr. D.N. Singh sir, convener of the society, for his presence in this program. My sincere thanks to all the faculty members who became a part of this event today. Special thanks to Dr. Rambilas sir, Dr. Pankaj sir, Dr. Uma ma'am, and Dr. Pankajendra Kishore sir. Also, my special thanks to Ms. Sakshi, the former president of Saksha, for being with us today. Now, I want to congratulate the editors of the magazine for successfully launching the magazine, Journal of Continuity and Change, JCC, by graduates. I also want to thank all the parents who joined us today, as it is their hard work that encourages and motivates us to work even harder. They have played their role in showing us the right path, and now it's our duty to make them proud. I must mention our deep sincere sense of appreciation for our speaker, Mr. Sanskar Sihoriya, for his topic, India's foreign policy. A big thank you to Mr. Sanskar for his efforts towards his lecture, and it was absolutely amazing how he tackled all the questions. Now, I want to thank the GSTS team for their enormous cooperation in the organization of this event. Finally, I wish to thank all the students from various departments who joined us and became a part of today's event. Thank you all so much for your time and patience. Once again, thank you all very much today. And stay inside, stay safe, and take care of each other. We'll see you next Sunday on 25th July 2021 with the topic Medieval Alchemy by Shivani Sharma. Thank you all.